It is no secret that I'm a huge fan of Ashes of Creation, and I disagree with those that try to say Ashes has had scope creep because for many of the examples I have seen for scope creep, I can link to the Kickstarter page or discussions before or during the Kickstarter that talked about the feature that people are now calling scope creep. But while I don't think Ashes of Creation has a scope creep problem, I do think Ashes might have a problem with potentially too large of an initial scope. This is an incredibly ambitious project. Couple the ambition of the project with the trials and tribulations that come with starting a brand new company to build the game, and I think it is a valid concern. In addition to the massive scope, I also think there is potentially a push to have too much polish for each system in the game. They want to have the best character creator, the best weather and seasons and day-night cycles, an incredibly complex naval system, and an absolutely massive world map. This is in addition to a feature never tried in MMOs with the node system, which comes with a tremendous amount of complexity when you start digging into the vassal systems and all the different ways that node development can alter the world map. And a class system that has a massive amount of customization, with your primary archetype being able to be augmented by one of 8 secondary archetypes, plus many other forms of augmentation from other areas such as social and religious organizations. They also want to have perhaps the largest siege battles we have seen in an MMO with very high performance levels. So instead of scope creep, I really feel like this game could suffer from polish creep. To me, I actually don't think Josh Strive Hayes was completely off base when he said that the developers should focus on the base game and get that right first. I know he got a lot of kickback for that comment, but I think in some ways he might be right. Now, I don't think Ashes should be released in an unfinished state like New World did, but I do think that some of the ancillary systems that are not vital to the game could be polished after the game is released. And I think there are a few things that could be even outright removed and added back in later patches or expansions. To be fair, to me, there really is not a lot of systems that can be stripped from Ashes, as many of the systems are intricately connected to one another. But there are certainly a few that could be cooled and the game not suffer as a result. And certainly some of the polish could be added later on, especially for the ancillary systems. You might be thinking what systems could actually be removed. Well, for me, the thing that really got me thinking about this was the November livestream where the cleric and day-night cycles were showcased. When they mentioned that constellations were going to be showcased, I had to jump to the wiki. Because I've read through the wiki entirely multiple times and couldn't ever remember seeing anything about constellations at all. And sure enough, there had been no mention of constellations to that point. This was an added feature. An added feature to a system, not a new system entirely, so I wouldn't call it scope creep personally, but still a new feature, and very much a feature that is not necessary for the game to launch. It is very much an ancillary system, in my opinion. The day-night cycles in Ashes prior to constellations being a thing were already pretty complex, and I am not sure this addition was necessary. This is one of those ideas that I would want to see added to a list of features that would be nice to have in by launch, but not required. If the game is in Alpha 2 and the core of the game is in a good place, then start to look at things like this to add that little bit of extra polish and user experience to separate this game from other MMOs. But adding it in this early, I am not sure is warranted. Sometimes when Steven Shreve gets talking, it sounds like someone making an MMO wish list of things that would comprise his perfect MMO. If I was able to make a wish list of things that would comprise my perfect MMO, it would probably end up being an MMO that would take a 1,000 person dev team 10 years to finish. Because I could certainly come up with some complex systems that would be a nightmare to code, and of course if it is a wish list, I would want every single system in the game to be groundbreaking. And at times that is the way Ashes of Creation development feels. At times it feels way too ambitious. I certainly hope I am not coming off as too negative in this video because I am certainly not aiming to do that. I'm still very much on the Ashes of Creation bandwagon, but I am also a realist. So with that in mind, I thought I would try to compile a list of either systems, features of systems, or polish of systems that could be added in after the base game is playable and in a good working state. This could be after launch or even during Alpha 2. First is of course something I already mentioned, the constellations. That could be a nice feature to perfect down the road, but for now I would leave it in whatever state it currently is in. The next feature is one that is not talked about a lot, but they have mentioned wanting to have a mobile app, which itself would have a lot more features than most competitors have in their mobile app. This is an easy thing to put on the back burner until after launch. The third thing is something I am not sure is possible because it was a Kickstarter stretch goal and I'm not sure what the rules are with removing something that was promised in a Kickstarter. But this is something that would be easy to remove and is not a core feature integral to other systems. That is the Monster Coin system. Removing this would not affect other systems in any way, and to me would be a cool feature to see in a patch or expansion. The recently announced crafting minigame, which sounds nice on paper, is not something that I think will make or break the game. It would depend how far they are in developing this. They did mention wanting to spot test it, so that suggests it is already in a working state, potentially, so removing it now would be a waste. Test it. If it is not fun, then remove it and revisit it later instead of trying to fix it would make the most sense to me. Social and religious organizations are something I would really like to see in at launch, but I think there is something that could be added later in Alpha 2 once the majority of the game is working. And if push came to shove, the game would be able to function just fine without them, and they could be added in a future patch. They are not integral to the game design. Guild halls are a feature that would be nice to have, but not mandatory at launch. The same with player-owned taverns. These would be nice to have, but I don't think the game would suffer drastically if they were added after launch. Finally, general polish across all systems. For instance, they have showcased a ton of different mounts already. They can probably stop adding more and add the rest in later if they think they need more. The same with the naval ships. Get a good mix to start with, then add more if needed after launch. The character creator doesn't have to be the best ever necessarily at launch. You could always add improvements in future patches and give people a free chance to change their appearance with that patch. I think you get the general idea. Is there anything else I missed that could be removed? Did I say something on this list that should not be on there? Let me know in the comments. Also, this Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time is my first official live stream here on YouTube. I will be doing some PvP tanking and Warhammer Online. If you want to play with me, I could certainly use a healer and some DPSers to run some PvP groups with. Hit me up in the comments or on my Discord if you want to play. The plan is to start streaming once a week at that time, and mostly I will of course be covering MMOs. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video and hopefully at the live stream as well.